Okay, well, we're coming up on 10:05, so why don't we switch over? I'll reiterate for anyone who may have just joined, we'll be doing some poll everywhere questions throughout this presentation. So we'll be switching from our presentation over to poll everywhere so we can get kind of a live feedback as you guys send in your responses. So since it's been a few minutes since we had some people join, I'm going to switch over to poll everywhere so we can see if we have any results coming in. Because it's kind of fun to check that out. Great. So I'm just going to full screen this here as we go through. It's awesome. Thanks. It's great to have you guys here today, this morning, just after Thanksgiving break. Cool. I see some familiar names. Great. Yeah, we like having varied people, we like having various people attend these groups, these meetings. I'm going to switch over to the next one. Great. A lot of interest in reporting formats. And great. Okay. Awesome. This question, the survey will be live for a little bit longer. So I won't deactivate it just yet, but I will return to our presentation so we can go forward. Okay. So once again, I want to welcome anyone who may have just joined us to our advanced bootcamp. Today, I'm presenting this along with my co-presenters, Rob Christelle Ornelius and Fiona O'Brien. Will be taking turns as we go through our various subject matters. Looks like, yeah, skip a slide. So we'll be talking about the making programmatic submissions and updates to data package using our package service API, and also, why you may want to do that. As opposed to using the web interface. We'll then talk about customizable data portals and how you can use them to organize your data collections, and also why you may want to use this feature. And finally, we'll talk about ESS-DIVE's community GitHub for reviewing and commenting on ESS-DIVE's proposed metadata and data reporting formats, and also why that may be important to you. Please jump in with questions whenever if you have a burning one, please feel free to interrupt us. We'd be happy to take pause and talk about that. And also use polling moments to kind of come in with questions as well. It's a great time to do it. So Fiona, if you want to step in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited that you guys seem excited to learn today about the ESS-DIVE package service API. So if we can go to the next slide. So in previous webinars, we've discussed upload via the web interface, but I kind of want to go over what if that becomes cumbersome. You've uploaded your data package with 30 individual field sites, and you only have 40 more with the exact same field sites and the same co-authors. What are we going to do? Using the package service API, your organization can write code to store, modify, and search your data packages on ESS-DIVE. The data package API is meant, as you can see in this little diagram down below, it is meant to overpass the web form so that you can take your data and directly upload it to ESS-DIVE via the package service. Okay, next slide. The package service API is particularly useful for uploading large data files or a large volume of data. So if you have big data, the package service API can be really useful. For programmatic upload, whether that is the development of a software or a script that can transfer your data into ESS-DIVE, the package service can be very useful. For bulk data upload, maybe you want to transfer your project's data holdings into ESS-DIVE. This can be really helpful. And for reusing information across data packages, such as maybe location data. So these, like the package service API can be really useful for teams with, yes, a large number of data packages who want to develop a workflow for uploading via the package service. Teams, oops, typo. Teams with duplicate package metadata, being teams that might have, as I mentioned, field sites. If you have a large number of field sites that remain the same across your data packages, or maybe your authors remain the same across your data packages and you don't want to enter them manually every single time into the user interface, the package service can be an ideal tool for this. And for projects with consistent metadata standards, if your project has very clear metadata standards and structures for how you store your information, it makes transitioning a lot easier. Of course, if your team doesn't, it is still possible. We can always create better standards for our teams. Okay, next slide. So we have some poll everywhere questions about how you might engage with the API. So everyone could go and fill that out. Wonderful. Okay. We also have a little upvote. If you see one there that you agree with, you can also upvote it as well as adding a new answer. Wonderful. That's totally okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about using the package service API without much coding experience. Okay, we'll leave that active, or I think we have another poll question after this, Madison. So we will deactivate this poll and go to the next poll. So now we just kind of want to get a little background. If you're familiar with any of these terms? Wonderful. Awesome. Okay, so it seems like I like the scaffolding effect of the familiarity with the different terms, so I'll make sure to really focus in on the ones that are the most important. Do we have any other polling questions there, Madison?
I'm pretty sure we just have the two for this section. Ah. Yeah, why don't we go to this one?
Wonderful.
Now?
Oh, actually, that last.
Yeah,
that one's important.
Okay.
I think that was supposed to, yeah, we're gonna get that. Let's get that right now.
Okay, yeah.
So last question is, how many data packages are you anticipating submitting to ESS-DIVE in total by the end of 2021? Wonderful. Whoa. Awesome. I think we can return to the slides now. So it does seem like we have a wide variety, or some fairly varying knowledge bases and interests that might, for the package service API. If we can go to the next slide. So I'm just going to quickly go over what the package service is capable of doing, and then we'll get into how to use it and what it's useful, or in ways in which we can use it. So the package service API has a lot of these same capabilities that you as a data contributor have access to on ESS-DIVE. So that includes creating and updating data packages, adding data files, replacing data files. One of the ways in which it differs is you are able to upload larger data files. So on the ESS-DIVE user interface, I think uploads of data can get a little difficult sometimes. And I think we cap it at 10 gigabytes. But via the package service API, users are able to upload up to 100 gigabytes of data. So using the package service API is kind of a must if you have big data. Via the package service API, you can also explore existing package metadata. So you can get a very simple list, text-based list of all the data packages you have in ESS-DIVE, as well as you can search their metadata and pull that down if that's important for your team's documentation process. For the package service API, we also have extensive documentation via our Git books, which is at docs.ess-dive.lbl.gov. You can see that link right there. We have a whole section for the package service API with easy to navigate tutorials, troubleshooting guides, and helpful tips, which we have rigorously tested. And I'll talk a little bit more about our documentation on a later slide. My next slide. So the package service API upload process. The process at its core is pretty simple. So the first thing, of course, to do is learn. Review the documentation and kind of get an idea of how we structure our metadata for upload to to the package service API through the documentation. Then next step is to get your upload token. I think based on looking at the guest list, I think most of you are data contributors. If you're not, in our previous webinar, we go over that process a little bit more, and you can find out more about that on our docs website. So once you are a registered data contributor on ESS-DIVE, you can access your authentication token. We have documentation on how to get your get your upload token in our docs website, so you can learn more there. So you'll need to get your authentication token. You'll create the metadata in JSON LD, and you'll upload. And most of you seem to be familiar with an API. So what will happen is you will make the request to send it to the API URL, and you'll get back either a success, and your data package will have been uploaded to ESS-DIVE with a complete landing page, the same way it would look if you had uploaded it via the web interface. And if there are any errors, you will get a notification back asking you for changes. And I'll show you what those errors look like in a moment. Okay, next slide. So to get started, as I mentioned, we have our API tutorial documentation on our docs website, which is docs.ess-dive.lbl.gov. If someone could add that link to the chat, that would be very useful. These tutorials include all of the prerequisites needed to use the API, what kind of setups you'll need to have, getting your authentication token. We also have code examples for how to, as I said, submit, update, and search data packages via the API in 3 different coding languages. Looked like R was pretty popular. We also have Python and Java, if anyone's familiar with those or at all comfortable with those languages. And maybe we'll look into C++ for our C++ users out there. So we have these examples, and they go through all possible options in these 3 languages. All right, next slide. It sounds like a number of you guys have coding experience, but we also really designed our documentation to require very little coding experience. The tutorial documentation gives a complete walkthrough of the submission process via the API. And all the API metadata fields have a direct equivalent in the web upload form. So if you become comfortable with the web upload form, you can become comfortable with the API. And it has a pretty quick learning curve. We have a number of team members when we wrote the documentation, we tested it with the coding team, but we also tested it with non-coding users. And actually Madison, who is pretty new to coding, has been uploading data packages via the API, and she was the one who said it became pretty easy. So there are some success stories already. So even if you're not a super confident coder, it is easy to learn how to do it.
Yes, I can completely back that. You can just pretty much copy and paste it, and it does its own thing, and then you can add your specifications onto it. It's pretty pretty straightforward. I like it a lot.
It's always good to hear that your documentation is not for naught. Next slide. So we have our metadata crosswalk, which, as I mentioned in the previous slide, all the JSON LD fields have their equivalent fields in the UI or in the user interface for the web form. But we also have a number of other metadata standards listed in this document. You can access it at this little bit.ly link down here. It's kind of like a Rosetta Stone. It allows you to kind of see all the equivalent fields. I think we have FGC, OSTI, DataSite, and a number of other metadata standards. So it might be a useful thing to, if you're kind of getting yourself familiarized with JSON LD, to take a look at this metadata crosswalk to identify different metadata standards you might be more comfortable with or might have your data already stored in. That could be useful, and this could be useful in helping you translate that into JSON LD. All right, next slide. So I keep mentioning JSON LD. And so some of you are familiar with JSON, but JSON is an object notation style that is one of my favorites. It's easy to read, understand, and manipulate for us human readers than a lot of other notation styles. A lot of other programmatic submission or APIs use, I know OSTI uses an XML format, and XML has a lot of little pointy brackets and slashes, which I start to lose my mind a little bit using them. But JSON is a much easier and more comfortable object notation style for humans to use, which is nice. They're all readable for computers, but it's nice for us to be comfortable too. And we use JSON LD specifically, which is JSON for linked data. It's used by Google, so all of our data packages, whether submitted via the API or via the web interface, all have JSON LD embedded into them, and this allows them to be harvested by Google. So as you can see down here at the bottom, we have an example of an ESS-DIVE data package landing page, and that is automatically harvested by Google. So via the Google dataset search, you can see the Google version of the data package with all of the same metadata, which will just increase the visibility of your data package. Always better to have more citations and more eyes for your data package. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to get into kind of the exact capabilities of the package service. You can create a new data package. So what you'll do is, as you can see on the right side of the screen here, this is an example of some JSON LD that we've created. And so what you'll do is you'll create your JSON LD, and you'll submit it and validate it against the interface. And if the JSON LD is invalid, you'll get back some errors, which I'll show you on the next slide. But you can upload, as I mentioned, upload files up to 100 gigabytes within that initial upload. So you can bundle together your metadata and data in one upload to create your new data package. And there'll be, as soon as you get it set up, there will instantly be a landing page on ESS-DIVE. And that will look like, if you can go to the next slide. As I mentioned previously, if there are any errors, you know, I mean, writing an entire data package metadata can be complicated, and missing fields is fairly expected. So if you're missing any fields, or if there are any unexpected structures of the metadata, you will receive a validation error. So here up top, we can see that looks like date published. We expect that as a required field. It looks like this data package might be missing it. And so you'll get those verbose messages back, so it can help you go back to your metadata and fix it up. So once you have fixed it up, you can see down here at the bottom, your response will be fairly lengthy. And what you'll get back is the ID that we use to track it on ESS-DIVE. And you can see that ID in the view URL. So that will be how you access, thank you, Madison. That will be, the view URL will be how you can access your data package. And every version update will get a new ID. I think looks like a lot of you, I've seen a lot of your names uploading, so I think you might be familiar with the IDs, and you'll get back the complete metadata record for your data package in that initial success response. Next slide. So the other thing, or one of the other things the package service API allows you to do is pull down the data package information in JSON LD. So you can search for a single data package and you'll get the complete JSON LD record and you'll be able to see all the files associated with it. This is just a little hacky tip. When first kind of getting comfortable with JSON LD, I would create a package of my own and then pull down the JSON LD so that I could see what the JSON LD looked like with my own information and data, because I knew what fields what I had written into the user interface form, and I could pull that down and see that written out in JSON LD. So if you're kind of getting yourself familiarized, this was my little helpful hack in getting comfortable with JSON LD. So I hope maybe someone else might enjoy using that. Okay, next slide. So let's say in the previous slide, let's say you were looking over your metadata and you realized you had flipped your coordinates. It's a pretty common thing. We see a lot of coordinate flipping. So what you can do is via the package service API, you can update your data package. And when you create a metadata update, you only need to submit the section of the JSON LD that you want to modify. So here you can see that since, as I mentioned, maybe I messed up my coordinates. So all I need to resubmit is just the spatial coverage section. And I don't need to resubmit the abstract or anything. You can also, in the update step, you can add more data files or remove data files if need be. Next slide. So you can also retrieve a full list of all of your metadata packages. So let's say maybe I submitted 40 metadata packages and I used the same JSON. I modified the JSON LD, but I made a mistake on all 40 of my latitude longitudes. So you can get back a full list of titles, URLs. Is it public? Which is always important to know. And you can see the citations. So if you're harvesting for your own storage purposes, the citation's right there. But let's say I've made this mistake on all 40 of my data packages. If you can go back one slide really quick, Madison. Using the IDs from the search that I just showed you with the full list, you can resubmit, forward one slide. You can resubmit the same JSON LD for all of the identifiers to update all of your packages. You'll have to do it in a loop, but you won't have to modify pull the JSON and update the whole thing. So you can really easily update them all in a nice little for loop. Okay, if you can go forward 2 slides. So here are some common errors that will often come up using the package service API. The first one will be, as I mentioned, JSON validation errors. So we have created a JSON schema that basically defines what we expect for every different field and how we expect it to be styled. And using the tutorials and the technical documentation, which I'll show you in the next slide, or using package examples like I did, it will help you to get a better understanding of the JSON LD schema expectations. And as you can see, the error messages will tell you what fields you need to be focusing on and where the error might be. So that will help you troubleshoot and get your package submission ready and validated. The other thing that can often happen, I just really want to remind everyone of this. This is one of the most common issues. ESS-DIVE uses a token authentication system. And for programmatic upload, that token is crucial. But the tokens expire daily. So make sure that whenever you jump into using your package service API, you might see this message that sounds very ominous, which is you do not have authorized access. I think the first thing to always check is, are you using the right token to the right version of our website? We do have a number of different versions of the website, and I'll actually mention that on our next slide. If you can go to the next slide. So we have our technical documentation, as I mentioned. The technical documentation basically breaks down all the possible GET requests to get data from down from ESS-DIVE and the POST requests to post data to ESS-DIVE. And we also have an extensive breakdown of the entire JSON schema. So you can see when I say we need a contact person email, how do we validate the contact person email? And so maybe the authors, for example, are a list of people. So what defines a person? And you can see all of that. It's a fair amount of information, but you can see all of that in our technical documentation. So when you're debugging and trying to figure out where something may have gone wrong with the with your package service API submission, this can be really helpful. I think, okay, if you can go to the next slide. All right, so, and that's pretty much what I have. Here's a quick summary of kind of everything. The package service API can be used for programmatic upload, update, and search of data packages. You can reuse code to limit the carpal tunnel due to duplicate information across data packages. You can upload large data files. Reminder, you can upload up to 100 gigabytes per file. And you can perform bulk uploads, so maybe a large transfer programmatically to create many different new data sets on ESS-DIVE. And we have the extensive tutorial documentation to get you comfortable. Again, here are the links. These slides will be posted on the website, so you can click them from the slides if you would like. And I hope that I've kind of clarified the package service API a little bit. I think we're gonna do questions at the end, correct, Madison?
Yeah, we'll leave questions until the end.
Wonderful. So I hope to answer any questions you have at the very after we've kind of gone through the other sections. Thank you. And next up is going to be Madison telling us a little bit more about the data portals.
Thanks, Fiona. Yes, so I'll explain to you what data portals are and how you can use them on ESS-DIVE to help you and your teams out. So a data portal is a collection of any data packages that are on ESS-DIVE. And these are published and public data packages, as well as private data packages. Researchers, projects, labs, and individuals can easily highlight these data collections and share their data sets using a data portal. And you can also share your research topics in your data portal as well, which I'll talk about more. So to provide some context into what a customizable data portal is, I want to first talk about ESS-DIVE's data search interface, which is what we're all used to seeing when we type data.essdive.lbl.gov into our URL. So ESS-DIVE's data search interface can also be considered a data portal. And it's a portal or a data view of every data package that has ever been published to ESS-DIVE. So in this view, we can see just everything. So moving to a data portal, a customizable data portal, this provides a unique data view on ESS-DIVE's published data sets. So in a customizable data portal, we can select which data package we can view at once, and it lets us shift the focus of ESS-DIVE's default data view. So as you can see in the image I have on the slide, I have highlighted the number of data sets that you can see at once, and if I go back one slide, we have a total of 441 data sets that were published at the time of this screenshot we can take, which was last week. And on this slide, we can see that there are 226 data packages in the Carbon Dioxide Information Analysis Center's data portal. So that already kind of, this completely shifts the focus, like even the way the page looks, the amount of data you can see, and this just gives you a quick snapshot into how powerful portals can be. So to go into a little more detail about key portal features, portals can be branded. So this logo you see on screen, the title, the URL, all of this is customizable. The banners, the titles, you can change everything that you see in a portal. And that can really help make your data discoverable, make your data pop, or your research, or, and we'll go into all the things that you can talk about in a data portal, but it's pretty much anything you want. So it gives it gives ESS-DIVE data contributors a space to provide data and research context beyond what you may normally publish in individual data packages. But in addition to this, data portals also have portal-specific data metrics. So as a default in ESS-DIVE, we have a general data metrics for everything that ESS-DIVE stores. Each data contributor who has published data before can also look at metrics of the data packages that they own. And now we also have portals, which if you didn't create the data package itself, but you're a part of a team, and you're part of what allowed this data to be published or whatnot, you can get the metrics on all those data packages. So you are not as limited using data portals. And finally, sharing data portals is very easy. It's a link. This data is public. Anyone can select a public portal link and view its contents and tab through all the pages. So it's a really powerful tool. So this link, so you can imagine a data portal kind of as like a personalized website for your research that's hosted by ESS-DIVE. It brings that level of flexibility to ESS-DIVE. And so let's say you already have a website for your research, then you can even just add this link into your pre-existing website or portfolio, and it lets you easily view all of your data that you have published on ESS-DIVE. So it's still, whether you use it as a website or not, portals are still a powerful tool for connecting related data sets together. So you still have that. So I want to talk more about the other pages that exist in a data portal beyond the data and metrics page. So portals can give projects and groups an identity in ESS-DIVE, or it can, so if you have, so yeah, let's go. So like more about this identity. So let's say you're a pre-existing group and you already have data published outside of ESS-DIVE and maybe use the package service API to bring your data packages into ESS-DIVE. But you don't want your data packages to remain scattered amongst the other data packages that are in ESS-DIVE. So portals can help you retain your identity in that sense, kind of like how we've done for our CDAC portal, because they have 226 data sets, and by bringing them into a CDAC data portal, we're able to share with the scientific community CDAC. We can tell them what CDAC is beyond their very useful data packages that have helped researchers out over the last couple decades. So so it lets us talk about that scientific context, because in CDAC's data packages, we may not have space to go into detail about what the Carbon Dioxide Information Analysis Center is, and it's the important work that is brought to the community. So in general, portals can describe research groups. They can go beyond the group itself and talk about study sites. If you have maybe many data packages within a single study site, it could help make your data packages a little more readable if you can link out to a data portal that includes a lot of important supplementary information that may not be specifically relevant to each data package. And then you can also talk about the research question you're addressing beyond the people who are involved in it and beyond the study site, just what is the scientific importance of all the data packages that you've been submitting to ESS-DIVE. So you'll keep seeing the Carbon Dioxide Information Analysis Center portal throughout this presentation. Here I'm showing a snapshot of one of the 5 pages that we have here. And CDAC focuses, this portal focuses on both showing researchers what, who or what the Carbon Dioxide Information Analysis Center is, and also about the scientific purpose of the data collection. So on this next, I'll zoom in on our tabs here. So we have about fossil fuel emissions and vegetation responses to CO2. So each of the tabs has a specific scientific purpose that it details. And then we also have a facts section because this, as you saw, there's 226 data sets here, and there are a lot of common questions that people have had in the past about these data sets. So being able to include this facts section is actually really powerful for data users to be able to access. So this is a snapshot of those type of metrics that you'll be able to see. As I said, the data collection, each data portal has its own specific metrics, and it's personalized, and it updates to whatever data packages that you add to that data portal. On the next slide, I'll go, because I can't include everything that the data package, that the data metrics page will include. Just a quick snapshot is of what you might see, of what you will see are the number of times your data portal has been cited, the number of times the portal has been the data has been downloaded from your portal, and the number of times your data package landing pages have been viewed. And if you wanted to see this in detail, going to ESS-DIVE's repository summary, you can see all of these metadata metrics details, and can scroll through and see what you would have available if you did create a portal. This link is here on this page, and of course, all of these links, as Fiamma said, will be made available in a downloadable version of this PowerPoint. So when you're ready to create data portals, it's very easy. Any data contributor already has permissions to create data portals. So anyone here at this presentation today, if you went onto data.ess-dive.lbl.gov and went into your settings page, you can, you'll see here it is, a link to My Portals within your setting page. It's very easy to access. As I said, you already have permission to, you can click the green New Portal button and just play around with it and see how you can start adding that research context that you've been dying to add to your data packages, I'm sure. Once you're there, once you start your new portal, you can go to ESS-DIVE's documentation, and that will help explain everything you may need to know about creating it, what all the tabs mean, what all the settings are. All of that is within our documentations, and I won't be going into detail on that in this webinar. Additionally, beyond ESS-DIVE's documentation, we also have the Arctic Data Center has tutorial videos that steps through everything. And it's a really great companion resource to the documentation. For anyone who doesn't know, Arctic Data Center is also a Data One partner, just like ESS-DIVE. So they also have this tutorials feature in their repository. So once again, I'll encourage to please give this feature a try, even if you want to just create it, because when you create it, it's not automatically going to be published anywhere on ESS-DIVE, so you can just have fun with it and see what you and your team can do. So I just have one question for everyone here about data portals. So I'm switching over to Poll Everywhere and activate the new question. So I'd really like to know if anyone here or their group may already be interested in creating a portal for their published data packages. And this could be data that you already have published on ESS-DIVE or data that you are going to publish in the near future. And I'll keep this up for a couple more seconds. Oh, and I can't see the chat at this time, but I'm trying to make sure that the link is available in the chat box to pollev.com/ESS-DIVE.
Yes, we've got the link in the chat.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, then this question will be live for a little bit longer, so I'm going to switch over to Rob to talk a little bit more, well, actually to present on data reporting formats. Please take it away, Rob.
Thanks, Madison. And I do see a couple questions coming in about portals in the chat, so maybe you could hop in there, or we'll definitely get to them towards the end. So hi, everyone. Nice to see you all in the Zoom this morning. I'm excited to chat with you all about our data and metadata reporting formats and how we at ESS-DIVE are using them and implementing them. Next slide, Madison. Thanks. So lots of scientists, as a lot of you all know, are being required by funders and publishers to make sure that the data that they produce gets stored in repositories like ESS-DIVE and other repositories. However, and relatively recent research has shown that somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of the data that's stored in more general repositories than ESS-DIVE are unusable because of either for reasons like incomplete data sets, corrupt file formats, or because there's insufficient metadata to describe the data that gets stored in the repositories. And this has led to calls for data to become more fair, and you see the acronym spelled out there. And while we at ESS-DIVE help data contributors make sure that data that they are submitting to us kind of adhere to these fair principles, my portion of the webinar today is going to focus on how we at ESS-DIVE are trying to increase reusability of the data that gets stored with us. And on the next slide that you'll see in a sec, I'll describe a couple of key terms for the rest of the webinar here. So one way to make data more reusable is to make sure that data uploaded to our repository and others adhere to what are called data standards. And so sorry if this is rehashing some old material for you all, but just to clarify these couple terms. So standards ensure that the type of data that's collected of the same type, for example, if we're going out and collecting data that includes like dates, times, temperature, just to name a few different types, are entered into different data sets created by different people in the exact same way. So standards, and this is a term you might be more familiar with, and you've heard of some standard data standards like Darwin Core or different types of ISO standards, are generally internationally recognized and accepted and governed by like a large community of users, and often the product of like multiple decades of development. So we at ESS-DIVE tend to use the term data reporting format to describe what are community developed data guidelines at the early stages of development. When there aren't existing internationally accepted data standards for particular data types, we want the most efficient path to making sure that the data in ESS-DIVE is well structured and ready for synthesis and integration. Even if there aren't data standards, we want these data reporting formats to exist. So on the next slide, I have a quick example of the power of data standardization with a really pared down example. So if we have two scientists that went out into the field and collected some samples from their field site, you have the scientist on the left who collected soil and water sample, and so did that scientist on the right. However, you'll notice that while we're dealing with the same materials in general and the same variables, the headings on the top of those mini tables aren't standardized, nor are the terms within that material column. So you have one scientist calling what they collected groundwater and another calling it ground liquid, which may not be a very common term that you all might use, but just to show the example of how even the similar material might be called different things by different people. All right, so on the next slide, I've got the example of had these two scientists standardize their water collection data sets, you can see how we instantly recognize that similar materials can be found across these two data sets, and having those standardized header rows more quickly orients us to what type of data they collected. And also, since this is a more advanced bootcamp webinar, if you plan to use any coding tools to synthesize the data across these two data sets, you'd understand how standardized header columns make your synthesis research using some programmatic tools a lot more efficient. And this could save us tons of time when we're talking about synthesizing data across tens or hundreds of data sets. So a major focus on the next slide, a major focus of our community engagement team here at ESS-DIVE has been this process of getting the scientific community involved in developing and adopting data reporting formats. So initially, we worked internally at LBL to develop the 3 formats I have pictured along the slide here, one of them including the metadata that accompanies any data uploaded to ESS-DIVE. Now, over the past 6 years, if you could click on Madison, Over the past 6 years, we've worked with, over the past 1 year, we've worked with 6 teams of community partners to develop reporting formats for some of the diverse data generated by DOE's Environmental System Science program, ranging from, and we have just to name a few examples, soil respiration data, leaf physiology data, and sequencing data. And each of these reporting formats is being developed by teams of scientists that we have described on the slide here, who are expert in collecting that type of data. So they have deep knowledge of the data they collect and the format that would make that data most useful. We envision these reporting formats making ESS-DIVE data more useful because people using these reporting formats would upload their data in a relatively standardized way, and this makes the synthesis downstream a lot more efficient, as I mentioned on that previous slide with the smaller example. Next slide, please. So all of our documentation and collaboration on these community developed reporting formats is now happening on the website GitHub. You may have heard about this for collaboration on computer code, but more organizations, us included, are using it for hosting and collaborating on data reporting formats. So GitHub is best known for their system of version control, which you can think of as track changes. But instead of track changes happening on just one Word document, version control happens across multiple documents at the same time. So you always know who changed what for every single version of the documents you've uploaded to a GitHub site. So here's the landing page of our ESS-DIVE community space on GitHub. It hosts documentation about our reporting formats, of course, right now, but we plan for this space to host community developed code that's related to ESS-DIVE. If you were to scroll down this page, you'd see that our community space links to different GitHub sites that contain information on each of those reporting formats. So each reporting format has their own sort of sub GitHub site. And I highlight here that I've created a sort of orientation to GitHub on our landing page. So you could click that and it would walk you through how to do everything from start creating a GitHub account to using the different pages. Thanks, Madison. So on the next slide, we'll take a closer look at one of these repositories or one of these GitHub sites, which contains a reporting format for anyone that's submitting data to ESS-DIVE on sample data. So development of this format was led by Joan Damerow, another postdoc working with ESS-DIVE. And on the landing page, this is typical of any GitHub site. You'd see the full structure of the site. You can see that there are subfolders containing supporting documents like suggested vocabularies, and even downloadable templates, which are really key for anyone trying to use this, this reporting format. Next. Joan includes this document on her GitHub site, also written in the Markdown language, which is the language that is used to create some of that customization in the portals that Madison was talking about earlier. And this is another essential stop for anyone planning to use the reporting format. Next. The guide in this GitHub site provides a full list of all of the elements that anyone uploading metadata for a sample should include when contributing data to ESS-DIVE, and I've shown just a small selection here. Joan created a table of contents at the top of the guide that lets users click the links and provides them with more details about what they should include to describe the material within their sample for this little example that I'm showing here. Next. Now, a key benefit to using GitHub to manage documents is collaboration, of course, that in-depth tracking system I mentioned earlier called version control. And another GitHub feature that enables collaboration is called GitHub Issues. Issues allow any user to suggest changes to any part of the repository. And here's where all of you data contributors come in for sure. The issues are publicly visible, ensuring that any decision-making process about the formats are totally transparent. Something we see as really important for collaboration on these formats. And Joan adopted another best practice that a review that I worked on about this sort of creation of different GitHub sites suggests, which is that for anyone looking to submit an issue, suggest a change to the reporting format, we provide you with a helpful template that you can just, all this information is sort of pre-filled out and you customize with the maybe new term you'd like to suggest or term you'd like to modify. Next. So we use a documentation tool called Gitbooks that renders those GitHub repositories as a really user-friendly website. And if you'd rather not suggest changes to the reporting format, but just view the material, then you can use these user-friendly Gitbooks to view the material on just a sort of standalone website. And what's nice is that anytime we update our GitHub repository, you would see the Gitbook content instantly refreshed with whatever changes we may make on GitHub. Next. And here's an example of what Joan's GitHub repository looks like rendered as a Gitbook website. And this is, again, the site that we envision most visitors would end up using unless they want to start collaborating on and suggesting changes to the format. And every Gitbook is searchable and gets rendered with this nice, easy to use table of contents off on the left-hand side based on the structure of Joan's GitHub repository. And I'll end here by displaying the various reporting formats that are under development, many of them in the process or already uploaded to our community space on GitHub. And our community space on GitHub is the place for everyone to provide feedback, make comments on, submit issues on the reporting formats, and start downloading some of those templates for use. The Gitbooks are still in development stages, but they're coming online, as those GitHub pages get updated. And so we'll be linking to those from the ESS-DIVE website. And with that, yeah, I see the chat has been going with questions. So thanks for all of those, and want to thank you all for attending, and we can answer any more questions you might have too.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So I believe we had some of our teammates come in and answer some of the questions that are in the chat, but would anyone like to talk about some of their questions they brought up in more detail if they felt like they want a more open-ended answer? Let's see. Yeah, we have a couple more minutes. We have 4 more minutes until 11 a.m. So yeah, we'd be happy to stay with you in that time. But for anyone who has to go, thank you very much for attending ESS-DIVE's Advanced Bootcamp webinar this morning, especially so soon after the break just ended. We're really happy to have you here. Yeah, thank you, Ben. And thank you for your questions.
And again, if you have any other questions that you think of later, you can absolutely email our support. The whole team's on there, so the whole team will be able to, just like the whole team will be able to pipe in, now the whole team will be able to pipe in on any support questions.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Since there are no questions popping up, I just want to send out another reminder that we won't be having a webinar in December. Merry Christmas. We will be here in January with more webinars. And we'll be eagerly awaiting you guys to join us again.
And if anyone's going to AGU, we'll have a number of presentations. They're all on our website. So if anyone wants to join us at AGU, let us know, or we just come say hi.
Virtually, however that works. I don't know how it'll work.
Okay, I think it's just our team now, so.
Seems like it. Okay. All right, well, see you guys next time.